In the serene expanse of planet Scilaris, a young alien named Aria stood before the vast observation window of her father's laboratory. The stars sparkled like tiny jewels in the endless canvas of space. Aria had always been fascinated by other worlds, but none intrigued her more than Earth. The forbidden blue planet was a subject of much debate among her people, the Taxilarians. Her father, Dr. Kalor, a highly respected scientist, often discouraged her from delving too deeply into Earth's broadcasts. "They're too unpredictable," he'd say. "Humans are a volatile species. They've barely advanced beyond their primal instincts." Yet, despite his warnings, Aria found herself drawn to their culture. It wasn't just their technology or their history, it was their spirit. Late at night, after her father had gone to rest, Aria would sneak into the lab, turning on the high-frequency monitors that picked up signals from Earth. She loved watching human broadcasts, especially those showing simple moments of joy, children playing, families laughing, and friends sharing stories. There was something about their raw emotions that fascinated her. Tonight was no different. As she adjusted the monitors, a new transmission came through. The screen flickered and then stabilized, revealing a group of human teenagers playing basketball in a park. Aria watched them with wide eyes. The way they moved, the way they interacted, it was unlike anything she had seen on Scilaris. Her father's words echoed in her mind. They're chaotic, unpredictable. But to Aria, that chaos was beautiful. The humans were so full of life, of passion. She could feel her heart racing as she watched them laugh and compete, their energy infectious even through the cold distance of space. "I have to go there," Aria whispered to herself, her mind already racing with possibilities. She had to see Earth, not just through a screen, but with her own eyes. Suddenly, the door to the lab slid open, and her father stepped inside, his expression a mixture of curiosity and concern. "Aria, what are you doing?" Aria quickly turned off the monitor, but she knew it was too late. "Father, I was just watching them." Dr. Kalor sighed, walking over to the window to gaze at the stars. "You know it's dangerous. Our laws forbid any contact with less advanced civilizations. The humans, they are unpredictable. But that's what makes them so fascinating." Aria protested, stepping closer. "They're so full of life. They don't just survive, they live. They dream, they create, they push beyond their limits. I need to see it for myself." Her father turned to her, his expression softening. "I understand your curiosity, Aria. But Earth is not like Scilaris. It's filled with conflict, with danger. You're asking for trouble." "I can handle it," Aria insisted, her eyes burning with determination. "I'll go in secret. I'll observe from a distance. Please, Father, let me do this." Dr. Kalor looked into his daughter's pleading eyes and sighed heavily. "You're as stubborn as your mother was," he said with a faint smile. "Very well. But you must promise me one thing. No contact. You observe, you learn, and you come back. No interactions." Aria's face lit up with joy. "Thank you, Father. I promise I won't let you down." As Dr. Kalor left the room, Aria sat down at the control panel, her heart pounding with excitement. She began plotting her course to Earth, her mind racing with thoughts of what she would discover. This was it, the adventure she had always dreamed of. But little did she know, her journey to Earth would be far more than just an observation. It would change everything. The day had come for Aria to set her plan into motion. The twin moons of Tylaris cast a pale glow over the landscape as she made her way to the hidden hangar where her spacecraft was stored. It was a sleek, agile ship, designed for deep space travel and equipped with cutting-edge cloaking technology. She had spent months secretly preparing for this moment, gathering resources and modifying the ship to evade detection, both by her people and the humans on Earth. Her heart raced as she approached the vessel. The shimmering hull reflected the dim light of the moons, and as she ran her hand over the smooth surface, a surge of both fear and excitement pulsed through her. Arya knew the risks. If she was caught leaving Xylaris without permission, the consequences would be severe. But the allure of Earth, of the unknown, was too strong to resist. Inside the cockpit, Arya activated the ship's systems. The control panel lit up with soft, blue light, and the engines hummed quietly beneath her feet. She punched in the coordinates for Earth, her fingers trembling slightly as she set the ship on autopilot. A holographic image of her father appeared on the dashboard, a message she had recorded earlier. "Father," she whispered, watching the projection with tearful eyes. "I'm sorry I couldn't stay. I need to understand them, these humans. I need to know what makes them so different, so alive. I promise I'll return with knowledge that will benefit us all." She closed her eyes, the weight of her decision pressing heavily on her chest. But there was no turning back now. With a deep breath, Arya engaged the thrusters. The ship lifted silently off the ground, slipping into the dark sky without a sound. As she left the atmosphere of Xylaris behind, the planet shrank in the rearview display, a distant orb of green and silver. Arya sat back in her seat, her gaze fixed on the stars. The journey to Earth would take a few hours, giving her time to reflect. She thought of her father, of the life she was leaving behind, and of the humans she was so eager to meet. What would they be like up close? How would they react if they ever discovered her presence? Her ship remained cloaked, invisible to both Xylarian and Earth-based sensors. As she neared Earth's orbit, she could see the planet spinning below her, a vibrant swirl of blue, green, and white. It was even more beautiful than she had imagined. Arya guided the ship into a low orbit, scanning the planet's surface for a suitable landing site. She knew she had to be cautious. Humans were unpredictable, and she couldn't risk being seen. Her scans detected a remote forest area, far from any major cities, where she could land and observe without drawing attention. As the ship descended through the atmosphere, the trees and mountains below came into view. Arya's heart pounded in her chest. This was it, her first step onto an alien world. The ship touched down softly in a secluded clearing, hidden beneath the dense canopy of the forest. She powered down the engines, her hands shaking slightly as she unbuckled herself from the pilot's seat. The door hissed open, and a rush of Earth's air filled the cabin. It was cool, fresh, and filled with unfamiliar scents: pine trees, damp earth, and the distant call of wildlife. Arya stepped out cautiously, her boots sinking into the soft soil. The forest was quiet, with only the sound of rustling leaves and the occasional chirp of a bird. For a moment, she simply stood there, taking it all in. The feeling of the wind on her skin, the smell of the trees, the vastness of the sky above. It was everything she had imagined and more. Arya had never felt so alive. But she couldn't linger. She had a mission to fulfill. Retrieving a small device from her belt, she activated the cloaking field that would keep her invisible to any humans who might pass by. From this point on, she would observe them closely, learning everything she could about their culture, their technology, and their way of life. As she moved deeper into the forest, her heart was filled with both anticipation and apprehension. This world was strange and dangerous, but it was also beautiful. She knew that her journey had only just begun, and that the decisions she made here would shape the future of both her people and the humans she so admired. What Arya didn't yet realize was that Earth had a way of pulling those who visited into its mysteries, and that her mission of observation would soon turn into something far more personal than she had ever expected. Arya's exploration of Earth was about to take an unexpected turn. The forest surrounding Arya's landing site was serene, but as she ventured deeper, her excitement grew with each step. Every sound, every sensation was new to her, and despite her mission to remain hidden, she found herself captivated by the sheer beauty of Earth's wilderness. The towering trees, the soft rustle of leaves underfoot, and the distant calls of unseen animals stirred something within her, a connection to this planet she had never known could exist. Hours passed as she roamed cautiously, her cloaking device keeping her invisible to any nearby humans. Arya kept scanning the area with her wrist device, ensuring no signs of immediate danger. Then, just as the sun began to dip below the horizon, her scanner detected a faint signal. Movement ahead. Curiosity took over, and Arya quietly made her way through the dense undergrowth until she came upon the source of the signal. There, in a small clearing, stood a group of human teenagers. They were gathered around a campfire, laughing and talking, their faces illuminated by the soft orange glow. Her heart raced. These were real humans, not distant images on a screen. For a moment, she simply watched them, mesmerized by their energy and how effortlessly they interacted. They were so vibrant, so alive. She could feel their emotions radiating outward: joy, curiosity, excitement. One of the boys, a tall figure with tousled dark hair, was telling a story, his hands animated as he spoke. The others listened intently, hanging on his every word. Arya strained to catch what he was saying, her translator quickly picking up the language. It seemed he was recounting an adventure he had experienced with his friends, a mix of humor and danger that made the others laugh and groan in response. Arya couldn't help but smile beneath her cloak. There was something so genuine about the way they interacted, nothing like the formal, calculated conversations of her own people. It was chaotic, unpredictable, and thrilling. But as she leaned in closer to get a better view, a twig snapped under her boot. The sound echoed through the clearing, and the laughter stopped abruptly. All eyes turned toward the trees, their faces filled with uncertainty. "What was that?" one of the girls asked, her voice tinged with nervousness. "Probably just an animal," the boy with the dark hair said, but his eyes scanned the tree line cautiously. Arya froze, holding her breath. Her cloaking field was still active, but any sudden movement could give her away. She watched as the teenagers exchanged uneasy glances, and for a brief moment, she considered retreating back to her ship. This was a dangerous situation. Humans were unpredictable, and if they discovered her, everything could spiral out of control. But something kept her rooted to the spot. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was something deeper, something she couldn't quite explain. These humans were different from what she had been taught to believe. They weren't just dangerous or chaotic. They were inspiring. The moment passed, and the teenagers resumed their conversation. Though the tension in the air remained, Arya exhaled softly, relieved that her presence had gone unnoticed. She took a careful step backward, planning her escape, when suddenly her wrist device beeped, a low, unmistakable sound. The boy with the dark hair turned sharply toward the noise. "Did you hear that?" he asked, rising to his feet. The others followed his gaze, their expressions shifting from curiosity to concern. Panic surged through Arya. The cloaking device had malfunctioned, and though she remained invisible, the sound had drawn their full attention. She needed to act quickly. As the boy stepped closer to where she stood, Arya's mind raced. She had no choice but to retreat. Activating the emergency protocol on her device, she backed away into the shadows, her breath quick and shallow. The cloaking field flickered for a moment as she moved, but it held just long enough to allow her a clean escape. She ran deeper into the forest, her heart pounding in her chest, not stopping until the campfire was a distant glow behind her. When she finally paused, she leaned against a tree, catching her breath and trying to process what had just happened. That had been too close. Still, something about the encounter lingered in her mind. For all the danger, there had been an undeniable connection. The boy's face, his voice, it had stirred something inside her. Was it simply her fascination with human nature, or was it something more? Arya shook her head, trying to focus. She had come to observe, not to interact. But as she glanced back in the direction of the campfire, she couldn't shake the feeling that her mission was about to take a turn she hadn't expected. Back at her ship, she sat quietly, staring at the holographic map of Earth's surface. The coordinates of the camp were still highlighted. Arya knew she had to be careful, but the pull of these humans was stronger than she had anticipated. "I'll stay hidden," she whispered to herself. But I can't leave yet. The night deepened, and Arya knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges. What she didn't yet realize was that her life, and the lives of the humans she had encountered, were on the verge of intertwining in ways she could never have predicted. The next morning, Arya stood at the entrance to her ship, feeling the early warmth of the Earth's sun on her skin. The forest around her was alive with the sounds of chirping birds and the rustling of leaves in the breeze. Earth had a way of making her feel grounded, yet more curious than ever. Her encounter with the humans last night still weighed heavily on her mind. She hadn't meant to get so close, and yet something about their energy pulled her in. Despite her promise to her father to remain purely an observer, Arya found herself struggling to keep that distance. The way the humans interacted, the raw emotions they wore so openly, was unlike anything on Xylaris. Her people were methodical and calm, always calculating, always rational. But these humans, they were unpredictable, and that unpredictability was intoxicating. She checked her wrist device again. The cloaking mechanism was back online, fully operational after its brief malfunction the night before. Her ship was still hidden, nestled within the forest's thick foliage, invisible to any passing eyes. But something within her knew she couldn't stay hidden for much longer. Arya spent the day exploring, her cloaking field ensuring she remained undetected. She wandered through fields and streams, marveling at Earth's natural beauty. She picked up small stones, examined flowers, and studied animals from a distance. Everything here seemed so alive, so vibrant. Yet no matter how much she tried to focus on her surroundings, her mind kept drifting back to the campfire and the group of teenagers she had watched. By late afternoon, Arya found herself once again near the clearing where the humans had been. She knew she was tempting fate by returning, but she couldn't help herself. The boy with the dark hair, the one who had nearly discovered her, had left a deep impression on her. His voice, his expressions, there was something in him that resonated with her. As she approached the clearing, she heard voices again. The same group of teenagers had returned, and this time they were playing a game of soccer. Arya watched from the cover of the trees, her heart racing with excitement. They were so carefree, so full of life. She admired how they expressed joy without restraint, their laughter echoing through the trees. Then suddenly, the ball was kicked hard and rolled toward the edge of the clearing, straight toward Arya's hiding spot. Her pulse quickened as she ducked behind a tree, her cloaking device still active, but she knew it wouldn't save her if they came too close. The boy with the dark hair jogged over, looking for the ball. He stopped only a few feet from where Arya was crouching, his brow furrowed as he scanned the bushes. She held her breath, her heart pounding in her chest. He picked up the ball, but as he did, something strange happened. He paused, his eyes narrowing, as if sensing something was out of place. For a brief moment, Arya wondered if he could feel her presence, even though she was invisible to his eyes. She watched him carefully, her gaze locked on his face. His expression was thoughtful, almost as if he were listening for something beyond the sounds of the forest. "Hey, Jake," one of the girls called from across the clearing. "You found it." Jake, so that was his name. He blinked, shaking off whatever strange feeling had come over him. "Yeah, I got it," he called back, but he hesitated for a moment longer, looking back toward the trees before finally jogging back to his friends. Arya let out a sigh of relief, sinking back against the tree. She had come far too close to being discovered again. But there was something about Jake that stirred an undeniable pull in her. He was different from the others, more intuitive, more aware. For the rest of the evening, Arya stayed close to the clearing, watching the group as they laughed and played. She couldn't help but feel a growing connection to them, especially Jake. He was a natural leader, and the way he cared for his friends, the way he made them laugh, drew her in. Every word, every gesture he made fascinated her. As night began to fall and the group packed up to leave, Arya felt a strange sense of longing. She wasn't just observing anymore. She was beginning to feel something deeper, something she hadn't expected. These humans, especially Jake, were awakening emotions in her that she hadn't experienced before. Once they were gone, Arya returned to her ship, her mind swirling with thoughts. She replayed the events of the day over and over, thinking about Jake and the connection she felt. How could a human, someone so vastly different from her, spark such intense feelings? Sitting in the cockpit of her ship, she pulled up a hologram of her father. She stared at his image for a long moment, her mind conflicted. She had promised to remain an observer, to learn without interference, but she wasn't sure she could keep that promise anymore. "I have to know more," she whispered to herself. Her fingers hovered over the controls, and with a deep breath, she made a decision. She was going to interact with them. With Jake, it was risky, but something deep inside her told her it was the right choice. She couldn't simply watch from a distance anymore. She had to be a part of this world, even if it meant breaking every rule she had been taught. The adventure had only just begun. The next morning, the decision weighed heavily on Arya. She paced inside her ship, going over everything she'd learned about Earth's cultures, languages, and customs. Her father had always warned her against making contact, but the urge to connect with the humans, especially Jake, had grown too strong to ignore. This was more than just curiosity now. She felt a pull, something deep and unexplainable. Her heart raced as she activated her holographic translator, ensuring it was calibrated to match Earth's language and dialects. The device would allow her to communicate without revealing her true alien nature, masking her speech to sound human. Arya pulled up the cloaking controls, double-checking the fields around her ship. She had to ensure her vessel remained hidden. One mistake and everything could unravel. Stepping outside, Arya felt the cool morning air wash over her. The forest was peaceful, but her mind was anything but. Today was the day she would cross the line from observer to participant. She knew it was a risk, but the idea of leaving without truly experiencing Earth felt like a betrayal to herself. She had to know more, to understand what made humans so unique, so vibrant. As the day wore on, Arya returned to the same clearing where she had watched Jake and his friends. Sure enough, by early afternoon, the group arrived once again. This time, they carried backpacks and blankets, as if preparing for a day of relaxation rather than just sports. Arya watched from the edge of the forest, her pulse quickening as she scanned the scene, searching for Jake. There he was, laughing with his friends, that same infectious energy radiating from him. For a moment, Arya hesitated. What if something went wrong? What if they sensed she wasn't like them? Her father's warnings rang in her ears, but the resolve she'd felt last night returned with full force. She couldn't let fear hold her back. Slowly, carefully, Arya deactivated her personal cloaking device. Her figure shimmered into visibility just beyond the tree line, hidden from most of the group, but still within sight of Jake, who was walking closer to the woods. He stopped suddenly, his eyes narrowing as he caught sight of her. There was a moment of uncertainty on his face, like he wasn't sure whether he was seeing something real or imagined. Arya's heart pounded as their eyes met, and for a brief second, neither of them moved. She could see the confusion and curiosity in his expression. Summoning her courage, she took a small step forward. Jake blinked, shaking his head slightly, as if to clear his vision. "Hey," he called out, taking a cautious step toward her. "Who are you?" Arya's voice caught in her throat, but the translator activated, converting her alien speech into perfect English. "I'm new here," she said, her voice soft but steady. Jake frowned, his curiosity deepening. "New here? I've never seen you around before." He glanced back at his friends, who were still distracted, then returned his gaze to Arya. "Where are you from?" Arya hesitated, the lie forming quickly in her mind. "I've been traveling for a while. I'm just passing through." Something in her tone made Jake relax a little, though he still seemed wary. "Well, it's nice to meet you. I'm Jake." He extended a hand toward her. Arya looked at his outstretched hand, unsure of what to do. Earth customs were strange to her, but she had seen enough human interactions to know this was a gesture of greeting. Tentatively, She reached out and took his hand, feeling the warmth of his skin against hers. The touch was electric, sending a jolt through her that she hadn't expected. "You've got a firm grip," Jake said with a grin, clearly trying to break the tension. "Are you staying in the area?" "For now," Aria replied, her voice tinged with nervous excitement. "I'm learning about your world." Jake chuckled. "Yeah, well, there's plenty to learn. It's kind of a mess, to be honest, but it has its moments." Aria smiled, though her mind raced with questions. How much should she reveal? How much could she let him know without breaking the most fundamental laws of her people? Before she could respond, one of Jake's friends called out from the clearing. "Hey, Jake, you coming or what?" Jake looked over his shoulder, then back at Aria. "Do you want to join us?" he asked. "We're just hanging out, but if you're new here, it could be fun." Aria's heart raced. This was it, her chance to truly interact with humans, to see them up close, to be a part of their world, even if only for a little while. She nodded. "I'd like that." Jake smiled, and for a moment, everything felt easy. He led her back to the group, introducing her as a traveler passing through. The others welcomed her with casual friendliness, offering her a spot on one of the blankets they had spread out. As the afternoon wore on, Aria found herself immersed in human culture in a way she had never imagined. They shared stories, jokes, and snacks, all while laughing under the warmth of the sun. Aria listened intently, absorbing every detail, every word. These humans were more than just their chaos. They were kind, compassionate, and deeply connected to one another. But as the sun began to set and the group started to pack up, Aria's mind wandered back to her mission. She had promised her father she wouldn't interact, and yet here she was, not only interacting but becoming part of their world. What would the consequences be? And what was this strange connection she felt with Jake? It was more than just curiosity now. There was something deeper, something she couldn't quite explain. As they said their goodbyes, Jake lingered for a moment, his eyes meeting hers again. "Will I see you again?" he asked, his voice laced with curiosity and something more. Aria hesitated, feeling the weight of her decision pressing down on her. She knew she shouldn't get too close, but the pull toward him was undeniable. "Maybe," she said softly, a small smile playing on her lips. Jake smiled back, nodding. "I hope so." As Aria walked back toward the forest, cloaking herself once again, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life was about to change in ways she couldn't have anticipated. First contact had been made, and now there was no turning back. The days following Aria's first interaction with Jake were a whirlwind of emotions she had never experienced before. Her mind constantly wandered back to that moment in the park, the warmth of human connection she hadn't expected to feel. She had done what she swore she wouldn't. She had crossed the line. She had made contact. But it didn't stop there. Each evening, cloaked in the invisibility provided by her alien technology, Aria would watch from a distance as Jake and his friends gathered in the same spot. She observed their carefree laughter, their shared moments of quiet, their lives brimming with raw, unfiltered emotion. And every time, she found herself edging closer, wanting more than just to watch. It wasn't long before Jake sought her out again, wandering near the forest where she'd first appeared. His curiosity about her seemed to grow with every encounter, and despite her better judgment, she allowed herself to meet him. They'd talk about his world, his dreams, his fears, his plans for the future. Aria felt herself drawn into these conversations, feeling something for him that went beyond her original purpose of observation. But with each meeting, the risk mounted. Dr. Keller had grown suspicious. Aria had become distant, her usual dedication to her studies on Silarus waning. She spent more time in her spacecraft, more time secluded in her thoughts. It was only a matter of time before her father confronted her. "Aria," Dr. Keller's voice echoed through her ship's communication system. "I've noticed something troubling." Aria froze at her ship's controls. She could feel the tension in her father's voice, and knew he was onto her. "What is it, Father?" "I've been tracking your movements," he said gravely. "You've been spending a lot of time near Earth, more than just observation." Aria's heart raced. "I've been learning, Father. Understanding the humans in ways we couldn't from a distance." Dr. Killor sighed. "It's more than that, isn't it? Aria, have you made contact?" There was a long pause. The truth hung heavy in the air, undeniable now. "Yes," she whispered. "Aria." Her father's voice cracked with disbelief and frustration. "You've violated our most sacred law. You've endangered everything. For what? Curiosity, an infatuation with these humans. It's more than that," Aria pleaded. "They're not like what you think, Father. They're capable of so much more than chaos and destruction. They have a passion for life that we've lost. I see it in them every day, especially in Jake." "Jake?" Dr. Kaler's voice hardened. "Is this about one human boy?" Aria clenched her fists. "It's about understanding a whole species, Father. But yes, Jake has shown me something I didn't expect. Something important." Dr. Keller's silence was damning. When he finally spoke again, his voice was cold and resolute. "You must leave Earth immediately, Aria. Return home before your actions put both our world and theirs at risk. You've already gone too far." Aria felt her heart sinking. Her father's words made sense, but how could she leave now? She had barely scratched the surface of human existence, and more importantly, she couldn't bear the thought of leaving Jake. "There's something happening on Earth, Father," Aria said softly. "The humans are at a crossroads, and I think we can learn from them. They face challenges with courage, with creativity. I want to bring that back to Xylaris." "You're blinded by your emotions," Dr. Kalor responded. "The humans are dangerous, Aria. Your fascination with them has clouded your judgment." "Maybe," she admitted, "but I know there's more to them than we ever realized. Please, let me stay a little longer. I promise I'll be careful." For a long moment, there was nothing but silence on the communication line. Then, finally, her father spoke, his voice weary. "You're my daughter, Aria. I don't want to lose you. But if you stay, know that you do so without the protection of our people. You're on your own." Aria's chest tightened. She knew the gravity of her father's words. By staying, she was cutting herself off from Xylaris, from her home, from everything she had ever known. But the pull of Earth and the connection she had forged with Jake was too strong. "I understand," she whispered. "Thank you, Father." The line went dead, and Aria sat alone in her ship, staring at the distant blue planet below. Her heart was heavy, but her decision was made. Aria stood in the clearing once again, the evening sun casting long shadows through the trees. Jake was there, waiting for her, as he had so many times before. But this time, everything felt different. This time, Aria wasn't just an observer. She wasn't hiding behind the cloak of invisibility or the pretense of distance. She was here, truly here. As she approached, Jake smiled. "I was starting to think you weren't coming back." Aria smiled back, her heart fluttering. "I wasn't sure I could." Jake's brow furrowed with confusion. "What do you mean?" Aria took a deep breath. She had hidden her true nature for so long, but now, with everything at stake, she felt the need to come clean. "Jake, there's something I need to tell you. I'm not like you." Jake laughed softly, clearly thinking she was joking. "What, you're from another planet or something?" Aria's gaze didn't waver. "Yes, I am." The smile faded from Jake's face as the weight of her words sank in. "Wait, you're serious?" Aria nodded. "I came here to observe, to learn about your world. I wasn't supposed to interact. But then I met you, and everything changed. I couldn't just watch from a distance anymore." Jake stared at her, his mind struggling to process the revelation. "You're an alien." "Yes," Aria said, her voice soft but steady. "But I'm not here to hurt anyone. I just wanted to understand your world. And now, I don't want to leave." Jake's expression shifted from shock to something softer, something almost vulnerable. I don't want you to leave either. Arya smiled, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. For the first time since she had arrived on Earth, she felt like she was truly where she belonged. But their moment of connection was interrupted by a sudden, blinding light from the sky. Arya looked up, her heart sinking, as she recognized the unmistakable glow of a Xylarian retrieval ship. Her father had sent it to bring her home. No, Arya whispered, backing away. Not now. Jake looked up at the light, panic flashing across his face. What is that? It's my people, Arya said, her voice trembling. They've come to take me back. Before Jake could respond, the light intensified, and a voice echoed through the clearing. Arya, return to the ship immediately. It was her father's voice. Arya's heart pounded. She had made her choice. She couldn't go back now. Not after everything she had experienced. Not after meeting Jake. She turned to Jake, her eyes pleading. I don't want to go. Jake stepped closer, his hand reaching for hers. Then don't. With one final glance at the ship hovering above, Arya made her decision. She activated the controls on her wristband, disabling the retrieval beam that was meant to pull her aboard. The ship hovered for a moment longer. Then, realizing she wasn't coming, it disappeared into the sky. Arya let out a breath she didn't know she was holding, turning to Jake. I'm staying. Jake smiled, his hand tightening around hers. Welcome to Earth. For the first time in her life, Arya felt truly free. She had defied the laws of her people, but in doing so, she had found something far more valuable. Connection, understanding, and a new home. The stars above twinkled as if in approval, and as the two of them stood together in the clearing, the future stretched out before them, filled with endless possibilities. Arya had come to Earth to observe, but she had found something far greater. She had found herself.